Tokyo in December 1968 was a city moving fast to outrun its past. Beneath the neon lights of a rapid economic boom, deep post-war shadows still lingered. On one particularly rainy morning, a police motorcycle flagged down a bank transport vehicle carrying 300 million yen. The officer calmly informed the guards a bomb was planted underneath their truck. When smoke suddenly erupted from the chassis, the guards fled in terror. The officer didn't shout, he didn't pull a weapon. He climbed into the driver's seat and drove away with the equivalent of billions in today's currency. He left the investigators with absolutely nothing to work with. There were no fingerprints on the scene, the heavy fog meant no witnesses got a clear look at his face, and his escape route seemingly vanished into the rain. The public was immediately captivated. The idea of a genius thief outsmarting the authorities on his own was a great story. But that obsession with a solitary mastermind blinded everyone to the darker reality of how the crime was actually pulled off. Two investigators on the case, Detective Shibata and Mori, started looking past the obvious narrative. The deeper they dug into the evidence, the more the theory of a flawless, isolated criminal began to fall apart. The escape vehicle was a stolen civilian motorcycle, meticulously modified to mimic an authentic police bike down to the exact paint and detailing. Then there was the smoke flare used to fake the bomb threat. The detectives realized it was restricted, active military-grade hardware. A solitary civilian doesn't simply walk into a shop and purchase classified military explosives, nor do they perfectly fabricate police gear without serious logistical support. The terrifying nature of this crime stems from the physical evidence left behind. This specific hardware indicates an operation with massive systemic resources. Shibata inspected the military flare closely and found tiny inventory codes engraved directly into the casing. Those numbers tracked straight to local black markets and ultimately to a secret American military base right outside the city. The moment Shibata made this connection, his office mysteriously lost power late at night. Out of the darkness, a tape recorder clicked on by itself, playing a distorted voice warning him to stop his investigation. The detectives learned the rules of this case quickly. Every time they took a step toward the actual perpetrators, a massive systemic defense mechanism fired back to stop them. A young man tied to a police officer's family emerged as a prime suspect, but before he could be questioned, he was found dead from cyanide poisoning. The authorities rushed to classify it as a suicide. The physical scene told a completely different story. The body was discovered lying in deep, wet mud, yet the dead man's shoes were completely spotless. Someone had killed him and moved the body. The police department actively ignored this impossibility. They rapidly buried the forensic report and pushed to close the file entirely. In lockstep, the media narrative shifted overnight. Television and newspapers aggressively promoted the official line that the case was solved, shutting down further public questioning. The investigation had collided with the institutional machinery of the state itself. The turning point came when Mori reviewed the logistical data for the bank transport vehicle. He discovered the bank vehicle's route was secretly altered hours before delivery. The thief could not have positioned himself perfectly without advanced knowledge of that diversion. This required high-level cooperation from within the police force itself. The route change was an inside job. The system's response was swift and violent. Mori was intentionally run down by a speeding vehicle in a dark alleyway, while a journalist investigating the case had her apartment burned to the ground, destroying vital evidence. The scale of the cover-up, from the manipulated route to the attempted murders, pointed to a singular objective: protecting a post-war political slush fund at any cost. Years later, Shibata finally identified the likely mastermind, Tatsuya Naruse, a brilliantly trained former police academy recruit whose records had been officially erased, acting as a ghost courier for the dark money. Shibata managed to corner him in an abandoned industrial warehouse. He secretly recorded the conversation to capture a confession about the deep political corruption. Naruse didn't deny it. He explained he was simply stealing dirty money from dirtier men, acting as a tool to fund post-war political operations. Before Shibata secured the evidence, the police raided the warehouse. They seized the recordings and allowed Naruse to slip into the fog, vanishing forever. Shibata was publicly discredited and suspended. All the files were permanently sealed, locking the truth away in government vaults. The 300 million yen robbery remains one of Japan's most famous unsolved cases. It remains unsolved because the detectives found a truth the world agreed to forget.